Great to see you guys. I'm so happy to have you all over here. We've been looking at our LinkedIn and Facebook events, live stream events, and we got a couple of questions. So let's maybe start from these questions, and then we'll jump to some internal questions from my employees. So the first question we got, I have them displayed over here, is: are there any micro-frontend frameworks in the universe besides the ones which are based on JavaScript?
Well, I don't know about frameworks. I've seen this pattern for decades, mostly when people are updating, but the frameworks I know about are written in JavaScript.
Yeah, the whole front-end is mainly around JavaScript technologies, and browsers are supporting it, right? But I have to admit that I saw a long time ago some examples of, maybe we could call it microfrontends, based on very old technology built into our browser, which is called iframes. I guess that iframes somehow they might be old style microfrontends. Of course, there is a whole bunch of limitations when it comes to communication and passing the state between or some arguments between microfrontends. Okay. The next question we have was related to parameters and values. So can you pass parameters and values between microfrontends?
Yes. I mean, why not?
Simple question, right?
That's the whole point of dealing with that. So yes, you can. It depends if you have multiple microfrontends in the same view or not. If not, like in the example Kamil was sharing, it could be that you want to share through query strings or through web storage. Depends how volatile you want the data. If you have multiple microfrontends in the same view, though, you can share them through event emitter, custom events. Depends, or reactive streams. Depends what you're looking for.
Would you say some of the ways are, let's say, preferred or recommended than the others?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends from if you have multiple microfrontends in the same view, so you go more granular, or if you have one microfrontend per time. In the case of one microfrontend per time, in that case, the only communication usually you have is between different views or bundle of views. And in that case, query strings helps, or if you have like a JWT token to share, you can use local storage or a cookie. But in the case that you have multiple microfrontends in the same view, therefore there you don't reload the page. You want to communicate between microfrontends. So an event emitter or custom events are all, or reactive streams are all ways to divide and maintain loosely coupled different microfrontends, because you have a third object that is handling the communication for them.
Yeah. Kamil, Manfred, anything to add?
I don't know. Perhaps one thing Luca already mentioned in his talk that's also very important for me, namely go with loosely coupling, which means for communicating you can establish something like a mini message bus in your browser, so that you are just emitting events instead of calling functions over there. This doesn't couple the microfrontends to each other. You're just emitting an event, and it's fine for you if no one is interested. It's fine for you if everyone is interested.
There is one more question, which is maybe not related to microfrontends itself, but there is a question: is there a case where implementing single-page application architecture with microfrontends is not possible? So whether mixing SPA with microfrontends is not possible?
Technically, there is nothing that is preventing you. So in the previous implementation that I have done in my company, we were using HTML as entry point, not JavaScript. And therefore, we were able to load multiple small single-page applications inside a container and we were parsing the HTML of the page for appending the elements that we wanted in a simple way. And there is a framework also that is based on single SPA. It's called Cancun, that is doing exactly that. So it's something that is totally doable.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, guys?
Well, I would say it's not about being possible or impossible in general. It's more about trade-offs, because with each decision you go with, you have several trade-offs and consequences, positive ones and negative ones. And in my perspective, this is always the case when we talk about architecture, but this is somehow extreme when we talk about single page application based microfrontends. One trade-off is very often the bundle size. If you want to isolate your frameworks and applications, you have an increased bundle size. If you don't want to increase the bundle size, you have to share libraries, which means you can up with version mismatches. So at the end of the day, you really need to know your architectural goals. You need to bring them in a list, in an order, to find out which approach is better or more feasible for you in terms of advantages and disadvantages.
The next question we have, do you use dedicated common components like calendars, tables, tabs, or every single application create their own components from the scratch?
I think it depends on the project. Like if you create something like an admin panel, you don't need to have your own components. But if you create an application for the users, I think it's like an obvious choice to create your own components, or at least team them.
Yeah, I would probably also say that it is quite important to think about something called design system. If you're creating a, let's say, microfrontends within single company or even cross company, to enable something like design system, which enables other teams within your organization or third parties to contribute to the same product, making sure that you're not ending up with the patchwork application, so that the experience is equivalent across multiple microfrontends. Okay, and the next question we have, is it possible to combine microfrontends with hybrid apps approach somehow, like to load microfrontend web app in the native mobile application?
I think I can talk about it. That was the case I was doing in Vodeno. So mainly the application on the phone is just a container that's displaying one website. That was our application. So it's clearly possible. And that's kind of a modern approach. If you want to rapidly develop a scalable big application in multi-team environment, I think that's the way to go. You can then have application on Android, iPhone, and other platforms.
Luca, Manfred, anything to add here?
Ionic currently started to talk about microfrontends in their framework, and also they were mentioning a few case studies, like for instance, often Apple was using the principle about behind microfrontends for including advertising inside their native applications. So there are already some implementations that we are aware. I know for sure that there are other companies that implemented also natively microfrontends on Kotlin, especially on Android, less in iOS. But the problem currently on mobile, native mobile, is the problem around runtime instead of build time. Because on more native mobile, usually you tend to do that at build time, so you don't overcome the problem of delivering the native package at runtime, unless you are on Android, where there is a mechanism for doing so.
Yeah. I can add one more thing. Like if you're doing hybrid application with a front end, you need to think about it that you always work in WebView environment. So everything you want to, every JavaScript feature is only in the WebView space.
And I'm happy you mentioned, Luca, as well, the Ionic, because at least here we are also trying to investigate the opportunities and we are looking at Ionic Portals, the newest product from Ionic, how to integrate that within existing native applications and using also Strangle pattern, provide a digital transformation step by step, not introducing new products like with the big boom release. Manfred, would you like to add something here as well, maybe?
Nope.
Okie doke. So let's jump into next question. What is the best way to share common utility source code, like API, factory for API, call, logger between microfrontends?
But you can share libraries. It's not a problem doing so. The only thing you need to be careful on the frequency of changes and update on that library, and how often, and if all the microfrontends needs to implement the latest version. So the problem there is around the governance and the communication flow, the coordination across teams. It's not that you cannot do that. Obviously, if you are trying to minimize the external dependencies, more libraries you have might be a problem. Now, personal preference is if it's a logger library or let's say a utility library, I would do that at compile time. So I will store the library inside the private npm repo, and then I will fetch from there. And only if I have like a runtime concrete component library, I might go with the runtime, because the problem with runtime is, for any given reason, the contracts changes, and there's a breaking change you didn't realize, and you rely on the other team on doing that. The application can blow up in front of the user. That is exactly what you don't want to. So if you go with the compile time, you have, let's say, it's more predictable that it's not going to be, let's say, it doesn't introduce bugs in production without you knowing that, because then we end up with runtime integration and starting to say, oh, but in that specific browser or in that specific situation or edge case, we didn't think about that, and therefore it's becoming non-trivial to test and debug and fix the bug.
Yeah, I'm completely with Luca, as most of the times when it comes to microfrontends, it's not mainly a technical issue, but an organizatorical one. Plus, on the technical level, it was a bit tricky in the past. We had Webpack externals, as Kamil told us, and if you ask me, module federation makes it really straightforward, because it takes care, on the technical level at least, on the handling of different versions, about dealing with version conflicts and so on. But the issues are for sure on the organizatorical level.
Yeah, I think that Luca also mentioned about one of the key things when building microfrontends, about governance model. So we have also one question related: what are top 3 things you have to remember when building a governance model for a product which is based on microfrontends?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Top 33. I would say that first and foremost, you cannot create silos. So having a team that is coordinating and surfacing the patterns that are happening across the teams is probably the mandatory thing. So what if you want, in cloud modernization, we are talking about the platform team that is taking care about the common part of a system, where the platform team is taking care about consolidate patterns and provide some developer experience to the distributed system, is the same for front end. Therefore, that part for me is quite key, having a common team that is doing that. The other one is performances. Obviously, we split up the application in multiple pieces, and therefore you need a committee that could be a virtual one. It doesn't have to be a team that is physically always together for taking care about the performance. So in that case, for instance, back in the days, we were working with the principal engineers in my organization for coordinating the effort, making sure that everyone respected the budget, and then start to automate certain things. So if your architecture characteristics required to have certain bundle size or certain performances or maybe accessibility to a certain level, those things can be automated. So start to think about how I can embed those characteristics inside my CI/CD, because if you do manually, it would be impossible at some point to follow everything, because you will have always something else to take care of. Therefore, the automation bit becomes your friend, what is called in evolutionary architecture fitness functions, where you can start to test your architecture characteristics directly in your automation. So those things has to be automated and provide you and surface the, let's say, potential problems upfront for you, more than you starting to see them when they are too late in production and consumed by your users.
Guys, would you add something upon that?
I think it needs to be clear in the organization that we are working on a micro frontend. Like, for example, you are a remote-only company and you are communicating on the calls, or like it's like no-call communication. So it's something new approach. Like, it's really important to build it into the structure and into like basics of your day workflow. Like, for example, informing about the changes, like maybe it's built in a build process, like kind of upgrading tool that will upgrade your dependencies and don't pass it until you check everything. I don't know. I think it's like on the organizational level thing. And of course, communication. It's always where it's any problem in the company, it's about communication.
Great. Manfred, would you like to add something into governance model across Microfrontence?
Well, I think in general, this platform theme is important. Perhaps we don't call it a platform theme because a platform is something we are all depending upon. And Microfrontends are about getting rid of dependencies. I like the idea of an enabling team, of a team that is going around management by walk and talk and helping people to achieve their goals. But you need for sure some people with a lot of knowledge regarding low-level browser APIs, regarding Microfrontends, knowledge normally not everyone has, because nowadays people start with frameworks like React or Angular, and so they normally don't have this low-level knowledge, and normally they don't need it. But now you need it, and that's why you need this enabling team, walking around, talking with people about their issues, and making sure to help them to achieve their goals.
That's great. I would maybe add two items. I would probably add something regarding building quality. That's something you mentioned somehow, Kamil, in regards to communication, but also into organization. I think building quality, especially when you are letting others introduce some microfrontends into your product, is very important to meet some level of building quality in regards to code quality, but also that can be solved by many ways, like for instance test automation and so on. But I would also not down prioritize the design system and the user experience of the final product, because it's super easy to let the people do Wild West development and enable really patchwork application with a low user experience at the end of the day. And that's probably something we would love to avoid when having an enterprise architecture and enterprise applications. Okie doke, we are running out of the time, so first of all, I would love to say big thank you to our presenters, to Kamil, Luca, and Manfred. It was a true pleasure to have you guys over here, and I'm looking forward to meet you face to face next NG Poland or next event we will be organizing around Frontends. Feel free to visit us in our office. I'm more than happy to bring you for a coffee and have a chat about Microfrontends.
Awesome. So thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.